James realized he had a choice: protect his wealthy life by turning her away, or protect his son by keeping her close, no matter the danger. And for the first time, James understood money could not shield him from what was coming. Hidden past revealed James had lived a life where secrets could be bought or buried. In his business world, nothing stayed hidden for long. Money always revealed the truth. But with Lyra, it was different. She carried a silence around her that no wealth could break. Every time he looked into her glowing eyes, James felt that she knew far more than she spoke. For days, Lyra stayed quietly in his apartment, teaching Ethan her strange symbols, whispering songs in a language older than the earth itself. She barely ate, barely slept, but her presence filled the boy's world with joy. Ethan had never smiled so much. Still, James could not rest. The warning message haunted him. She belongs to us. Give her up, or suffer. Who were they? Why did they want her? And why did she choose his son of all children? Late one evening, James decided he needed answers. He told his staff he had late meetings, kissed Ethan goodnight, and waited until the apartment was quiet. Then he followed Lyra. She moved silently through the city streets, barefoot and unnoticed, her thin figure slipping into alleys like a shadow. James trailed her carefully, keeping distance. Finally, she reached the edge of the city where the tall towers ended and the ruins began. The ruins were once an old industrial zone factories, abandoned after machines grew smarter than men. Rusted walls and broken windows stretched across the land like skeletons of a forgotten age. Here, no rich man would ever walk. Lyra entered a crumbling building. James waited before stepping inside. What he saw made his breath catch. The floor was covered with strange stones that glowed faintly, arranged in careful circles. Symbols were carved on the walls, pulsing with weak blue light. In the center, Lyra knelt, her small hands pressed together, whispering in her alien tongue. Her voice echoed through the hollow building, soft and sad. James felt a chill. This was no ordinary girl. She carried the weight of a vanished world. After a while, Lyra's body trembled. She pressed her forehead to the ground, and James could hear her whisper one word in English: "Forgive." When she finally turned, she saw him standing there. Her eyes widened, but she did not run. "You follow," she said softly. James stepped closer. "What is this place, Lyra? What are you doing here?" She lowered her head. "This is all I have left. My people's light. Small pieces. I keep alive. So, not lost forever." James looked around at the glowing stones. "Your people. What happened to them?" Lyra's lips trembled. For the first time, James saw true pain on her face. They were hunted. Strong enemies came with fire. My home. My family. Gone. All destroyed. I was a child. I ran. I hid. For years. James swallowed hard. He had lost his wife, but he still had his son, his wealth, his city. Lyra had nothing. Yet she carried her people's memory alone. "Why my son?" he asked, his voice rough. "Why Ethan?" Her eyes lifted, glowing faintly. "Because he listens." Most humans. Closed, blind. They laugh at stars, but he looks up. He sees. He is young, but his heart is open. "That is why I teach him." James shook his head. "Teach him what? Magic? Strange words. Do you know what people will say if they find out?" Lyra's eyes hardened. "Not magic, knowledge. Power of my people. If he learns, he can protect. If not..." She paused, staring at the glowing stones. "Humans will fall the same way." The weight of her words sank into James's chest. Could it be true? Could Earth face the same fate as her destroyed world? Before he could answer, a sound echoed outside: the crunch of heavy boots, the faint hum of engines. James froze. Lyra's body stiffened. "They found me," she whispered. James's blood ran cold. "Who?" Lyra's voice was barely a breath. "The hunters." Shadows moved outside the broken windows, figures in dark armor, carrying strange weapons that shimmered with deadly light. James's heart pounded. He had followed Lyra for answers, but now he had brought danger to both of them. Lyra grabbed his arm with surprising strength. "We must go. Now." James nodded, his mind racing. For the first time, he realized this was no longer about gossip, no longer about wealth or poverty. This was survival. They slipped out through the back of the ruins, running into the dark night. The sound of the hunters grew louder, closer. James's heart hammered in his chest, fear burning through him. Beside him, Lyra ran lightly, her glowing skin flickering like a beacon in the shadows. She looked fragile, but her speed was swift, her eyes sharp. When they finally reached the city lights again, Lyra stopped, her breath shaking. She looked at James with eyes full of sorrow. "Now you see," she said softly. "My past is not story. It is danger, and now it follows you too." James stared at her, his chest heaving. The ruins, the glowing stones, the hunters, everything he had seen tonight had shattered his old world. Wealth and power could not protect him anymore. Only truth could, and the truth was standing right in front of him. Fragile yet unbroken, carrying the weight of a lost people. James finally whispered, "Then tell me everything, Lyra. No more secrets." Her glowing eyes softened. And for the first time, she nodded, but deep inside. James knew whatever she was about to reveal would change his life and his son's life forever. The girl's secret. The next morning, James could not get the image of the girl out of his mind. He sat in his large kitchen, sipping black coffee, but the taste felt bitter. Across the table, Ethan munched on toast, his little fingers still drawing shapes in the air as if repeating what he had learned from the alien. James tried to shake it off. "Ethan," he asked carefully, "what exactly was she teaching you yesterday?" Ethan's face lit up. "Dad, she showed me how to make light from nothing. Look." The boy pressed his palms together and whispered something strange. For a moment, a small spark flickered between his fingers, like the flash of a tiny star before fading into the air. James dropped his cup. Coffee spilled across the marble table. His heart raced. "That's not possible," he whispered. Ethan only grinned. "She said anyone can do it if they learn. She promised to show me more today." James slammed his palm on the table. "No, you are not meeting her again." The boy's smile faded. "But Dad, she's my friend. She understands me." His eyes softened with something James had not seen before: hope. James rubbed his forehead. He had always believed that money could buy his son the best tutors, the best education, the best future. But here was a ragged alien girl, barefoot and homeless, teaching Ethan things no human teacher could explain. That afternoon, James could not resist. He took Ethan back to the park, telling himself he only wanted answers. And there she was, Lyra, sitting quietly by the fountain, tracing glowing marks in the dust. She looked up as they approached. Her pale face seemed tired, her glowing skin dimmer than yesterday. Yet her eyes held the same quiet power. "You came back," she said softly, her broken English clearer now. James crossed his arms. "I came for answers. What are you doing with my son? Why does he glow when you teach him?" Lyra's gaze shifted to Ethan, who ran to her without hesitation. The boy sat beside her as if she were an old friend. She placed her thin hand gently on his head, and for a moment her eyes glowed brighter. "Your son," she said slowly, "is different. Human, yes, but heart, mind, open." He can carry what others cannot. James frowned. Carry what? She drew a symbol in the dirt with her finger. The lines pulsed faintly with blue light. James stared, unable to look away. Knowledge, Lyra whispered. Old knowledge. My people kept it safe. But my people, gone. I only left. Her voice cracked, filled with sorrow. James knelt down, his voice lower. Gone, you mean? Destroyed. Lyra nodded. Hunters came. Worlds burned. We hid our children. I was small. I escaped, alone. She closed her eyes, her fragile body trembling. For the first time, James felt something other than suspicion. He felt pity. She was not just a strange girl. She was a survivor, carrying the ashes of a world he could not imagine. But then her voice hardened. She opened her eyes and pointed at Ethan. Your son must learn, or same fate will come to humans. The words struck James like a blade. He wanted to laugh it off, but the seriousness in her glowing eyes stopped him. Are you saying Earth is in danger? Lyra did not answer. Instead, she leaned close to Ethan and whispered something in her strange language. The boy's eyes widened. Then he stood up and looked at James. Dad, she says I can protect people. She says I can help you one day. James's throat tightened. He wanted to shout, to drag his son away, to end this madness. But then he remembered the spark in Ethan's hands, the glowing marks. The way his son's loneliness had disappeared since meeting her. This girl was dangerous. Yet she gave Ethan something James never could, purpose. As they were about to leave, Lyra suddenly grabbed James's wrist. Her hand was cold, fragile, but her grip was strong. Her glowing eyes locked on his. Listen, she whispered. Dark ones. Already here, watching, they want me. If they find me, they take boy too. James's heart stopped. He pulled his hand back, glaring at her. Are you threatening my son? Her head shook quickly. No, protecting. Only you can keep him safe. The tension was heavy, the air thick with unspoken truths. James dragged Ethan home that evening, but his mind was on fire as he tucked Ethan into bed. The boy asked quietly, Dad, will Lyra be safe? She has no home. James could not answer. He stared at his son's innocent eyes and felt guilt twisting inside him. He had more money than he could ever spend, yet a girl with nothing had given Ethan more joy in 2 days than he had managed in years. That night, James stood at the window of his tall apartment, staring out at the glowing city. His reflection looked back at him, but all he could see were Lyra's glowing eyes. For the first time, he realized the danger was real. If she was right, then shadows were already moving. And his son was now a part of something much bigger than his wealth, bigger than his control. James clenched his fists. He would not let anything take Ethan away. Not poverty, not strangers, not even forces from the stars. But deep down, he knew whatever Lyra was hiding was only the beginning. Wealth versus poverty. James woke up earlier than usual. The morning sun poured through the tall glass windows of his luxury apartment, painting golden light across his expensive furniture. Everything in the house looked perfect, polished floors, shining crystal, and the smell of fresh breakfast prepared by the chef. Yet, James felt unsettled. He sat at the dining table, staring at the untouched food. Across from him, Ethan ate quickly, his eyes bright with excitement. The boy whispered words James didn't understand, and for a brief moment, the spoon in Ethan's hand glowed faintly before going back to normal. James's chest tightened. This was no game anymore. Something was happening to his son, something beyond human understanding. And all of it started with that alien girl. Lyra. After breakfast, James looked out from his balcony. From here, he could see the whole city shining towers, Rich homes, busy streets filled with people chasing dreams. He was part of this wealthy world, a man of influence. People respected him, even feared him. But now, a girl in torn clothes, sleeping on the streets, had shaken his perfect life. James's phone buzzed. A friend from the business circle was calling. When James answered, the man's voice was sharp. "James, is it true? Your son has been seen with some vagrant girl. People are talking. They say she looks strange. This could harm your reputation." James's jaw tightened. Reputation. That word had ruled his life for years. But as his friend kept talking, James realized he didn't care about gossip. What he cared about was the spark in Ethan's eyes whenever he mentioned Lyra. Later that day, James drove to the park again. Lyra was there, waiting by the fountain. She looked even weaker than before, her clothes ragged, her skin dim, almost fading. Still, when Ethan ran to her, she smiled softly, her glowing eyes warming like a small flame in the cold air. James watched them from a distance. His son sat cross-legged in the dirt, listening carefully as Lyra drew glowing marks and whispered words. Ethan repeated them with surprising accuracy, his small voice carrying the rhythm of her strange language. People passing by stopped to stare. Some shook their heads. A rich man's son sitting with a homeless girl. It looked shameful in their eyes. James heard whispers: disgrace, dangerous, strange creature. For the first time in years, James felt the sting of judgment. He had built his life on status, on being untouchable. Yet here he was, letting a girl from the streets teach his son in public. His old self wanted to drag Ethan away, protect the family name. But another voice inside him said, "Let the boy be happy. Let him learn." That night, Ethan begged James to let Lyra come home with them. "She has no food, Dad. She has no bed. Please. We have so much, and she has nothing." James hesitated. His mind saw danger. What if she hurt Ethan? What if she was using him? But when he looked at his son's pleading eyes, he felt his heart soften. Finally, James agreed. He ordered his driver to bring Lyra back. She stepped into the luxury apartment like a ghost entering another world. Her bare feet touched the polished marble floor, and she looked around in silence. Her glowing eyes studied the chandeliers, the rich paintings, the shelves filled with expensive books. Ethan rushed to show her his toys, his robots, his games. Lyra touched them with curiosity, but seemed uninterested. She looked more fascinated by the view of the stars through the wide glass windows. James asked the maid to prepare a room. But Lyra refused. "No bed? Stay near, boy." She curled up quietly on the floor of Ethan's room, her fragile frame looking even smaller in the glow of the nightlamp. That night, James could not sleep. He walked quietly to Ethan's room and stood by the door. Inside, he saw his son asleep in bed, smiling peacefully. Beside him, Lyra sat awake, her glowing eyes staring out the window at the stars, as if watching for something only she could see. James whispered to himself, "What are you, girl? A savior or a curse?" The next morning, everything changed. James received a message on his phone, an anonymous warning. The words were short. "The girl belongs to us. Keep her hidden and you will suffer. Give her up and you will be safe." James's hands shook. Someone knew. Someone wanted Lyra. And now, because she was under his roof, his son was in danger too. He looked at Lyra across the room. She sat quietly, drawing faint glowing marks on the wooden floor near Ethan. She looked fragile, poor, and broken, but James knew there was more to her than what met the eye. Wealth and poverty stood before him in the same room, his golden world of comfort and her world of cold streets and hunger. And now their lives were bound together by one boy. The strange encounter. James was a man of wealth, but his life felt empty. He lived in a tall glass apartment above the shining city. Expensive cars waited in his garage. Servants moved silently in his house, and his bank accounts were full. Yet, he carried a weight inside his chest every day. His wife had died years ago, leaving him with only one reason to live: his little son. Ethan. Ethan was bright, full of questions, and always searching for someone to listen. But James was often too busy, buried in meetings, paperwork, and calls. He thought giving his son the best school and expensive toys was enough. But Ethan's eyes always looked lonely. One cold evening, James returned early from work. He expected to see Ethan in his room, playing with robots or drawing on his digital pad. Instead, the boy was not home. Panic rushed into James's chest. He ordered his driver to take him to the park where Ethan often played. The park was quiet, covered with long shadows from the setting sun. James walked fast, his eyes searching every bench and every corner. Then he froze. Ethan was sitting on the ground near the old fountain. And next to him sat a girl. She was not like any girl James had ever seen. Her skin shimmered faintly, almost glowing pale blue under the dim light. Her hair was wild, tangled like silver threads, and her clothes were torn, dirty, almost like rags. She looked fragile, thin, and weak. But her eyes burned with a strange light, sharp and deep, as if they held secrets of distant stars. James's first thought was fear. Who was this homeless girl? Why was she sitting with his son? He rushed forward, ready to grab Ethan, but then he stopped. Ethan was laughing. The boy's small hands moved in the sand, drawing strange lines and symbols. The girl sat close, guiding his finger, whispering soft words James could not understand. Ethan looked happy, happier than James had seen him in weeks. "Ethan?" James called, his voice stern. The boy looked up, smiling. "Dad, look, she's teaching me. She knows things nobody else knows." James frowned, his eyes moving to the girl. She tilted her head slowly, studying him with calm, unafraid eyes. For a moment, he felt as if she was looking not just at his face, but into his thoughts, into his soul. "Get away from my son," James said firmly. The girl blinked, then whispered in broken English. Her voice was soft, almost musical. "No harm. He learns. He's strong." James's breath caught. She could speak. And not only that, her words carried a strange weight, as if they were more than simple sounds. Ethan grabbed James's hand. "Dad, don't be angry. She's nice. She showed me how to solve the puzzle you gave me. She said I can learn like her people." "Look," he pointed at the sand. Symbols glowed faintly where his finger had drawn. They were not normal letters, not numbers either. They looked alive, pulsing faint light before fading again. James stepped back in shock. His heart pounded. "What is this? What did you do to him?" The girl shook her head slowly. "Teach, only teach. Your son, special, needs this." Her words were broken, but James understood enough. He stared at her ragged clothes, her fragile body, her glowing skin. She looked homeless, lost, perhaps starving. Yet her knowledge seemed greater than the best teacher's money could buy. Suspicion battled with curiosity in his mind. He wanted to protect Ethan, but something deep inside told him this meeting was not by chance. "Who are you?" James asked, his voice low. The girl looked at him for a long moment. Then she leaned closer, her pale lips moving with effort. "Name." "Lyra." James repeated it in his head. Lyra. A name that sounded old. Not from this world. Before he could ask more, Lyra leaned toward him. Her glowing eyes narrowed, and she whispered words that sent a chill down his spine. "Your son. Must be ready. Danger? Soon." James's mouth went dry. "Danger?" What did she mean? He looked at Ethan, still smiling, still drawing strange, glowing symbols in the dirt. Then he looked at Lyra, fragile, homeless, yet filled with a power he could not understand. Was she protecting Ethan? Or was she leading him into something dark? The evening wind blew cold across the park. James felt as if the world around him had shifted, like a door had opened to something vast and terrifying. He took Ethan's hand firmly, but his eyes never left the alien girl. He had money, power, and status, but in that moment, James felt smaller than ever. Because sitting on the cold stone, beside his son, was a mystery that no wealth could explain. And as he stared into Lyra's glowing eyes, he realized one thing clearly: his life. And his son's life would never be the same again. James realized he had a choice: protect his wealthy life by turning her away, or protect his son by keeping her close, no matter the danger. And for the first time, James understood money could not shield him from what was coming. Threat in the shadows, James could not sleep that night. His mind replayed the images from the ruined factory, the glowing stones, Lyra whispering prayers for her lost people, and the shadows of armored men hunting her. He sat in his study, staring at the city lights through tall windows, his whiskey glass untouched. For years, he thought money could buy him safety, but now the world outside felt darker than ever. Somewhere in those shadows, strangers were searching for Lyra. And if they found her, Ethan would be in danger too. Suddenly, James's phone buzzed. Another anonymous message appeared on the screen. "We know she is with you. Hand her over tonight. Refuse, and we will come for you and your boy." James's hand shook as he read the words. Rage burned inside him, but so did fear. He had faced business rivals, corrupt officials, and greedy enemies. But this was different. Whoever these people were, they had power far beyond human authority. He hurried to Ethan's room. The boy was fast asleep, his small hands resting on his chest. Beside him, Lyra sat cross-legged on the floor, awake as always, her glowing eyes staring at the window as if watching for invisible enemies. "Lyra," James whispered. "They know. They're coming." Her face remained calm, but her hands clenched together. "I told you. Hunters never stop. They smell what I carry." James swallowed hard. "What do they want from you?" She looked at him, sadness in her glowing eyes. "Me and knowledge I guard. They take me. They control. They take boy too, if they find him ready." James's chest tightened. His son, his only reason to live. He would never let anyone take Ethan. Before he could speak, the lights in the apartment flickered. A low hum filled the air, vibrating through the glass walls. James froze. Outside, the city lights seemed to dim as if a shadow had fallen across the skyline. Lyra stood quickly, her eyes glowing brighter. "They are here." A moment later, alarms rang. The building's security system detected intruders. Cameras showed black vehicles stopping outside, men in dark armor stepping out, their faces hidden under masks. James's anger exploded. "This is my home. I won't let them take my son." He rushed to his desk, pulled open a hidden drawer, and grabbed a sleek black handgun. He had never needed it before, but tonight was different. Ethan stirred in his bed, frightened by the noise. "Dad, what's happening?" James forced a calm tone. "Stay with Lyra. Don't move." The apartment doors shook violently. Then came a voice through a speaker, deep and commanding. "Hand over the girl. James, do not resist. This is your only chance." James aimed the gun at the door, his heart pounding. He was outnumbered, outgunned, but he would not surrender. Suddenly, the lights in the room grew brighter, not from the lamps, but from Lyra. Her thin body glowed fiercely, casting long shadows on the walls. Ethan gasped in awe. "Close your eyes," she whispered to the boy. The door exploded inward. Men in black armor stormed inside, weapons raised. But before they could fire, Lyra raised her hand. A burst of blinding blue light filled the room, sharp as lightning. The intruders stumbled, their visors cracking, their voices shouting in confusion. James fired his gun, hitting one of them in the chest. The man fell, his armor sparking. Another reached for Ethan, but Lyra moved faster. Her glowing hand pushed forward, sending the man flying across the room. The air filled with chaos shouts, gunfire, the hum of alien weapons. James pulled Ethan into his arms, shielding him. For a moment, it felt like the world was collapsing. Then silence. The remaining intruders staggered back, blinded by Lyra's light. They retreated quickly, dragging their injured with them. Within minutes, the vehicles outside sped away, disappearing into the night. James lowered his gun, his body trembling. His apartment was in ruins, glass shattered, furniture burned, walls cracked. But Ethan was safe. Lyra stood in the middle of the destruction, her glowing skin fading back to pale weakness. She dropped to her knees, exhausted. Ethan rushed to her. "Lyra, are you okay?" She gave a faint smile. "I protect." But they return, stronger, always. James knelt beside her. His chest was heavy, his mind racing. She had just saved his son's life, but at what cost? The girl was fragile, worn down, barely holding herself together. He realized something then. This was no longer just about keeping his reputation or wealth safe. This was war, and his family, his only son, was already part of it. James touched Lyra's shoulder gently. "If they're coming back, we need to be ready. You can't fight them alone, and I won't let you." Her glowing eyes met his. For the first time, she didn't look like a stranger. She looked like someone who belonged not to his wealth, not to his world, but to his family. That night, James made a silent promise. He would protect Ethan. He would protect Lyra, no matter who the hunters were, no matter what they wanted. But deep down, he knew this was only the beginning. The shadows would return. And next time, they might not leave so easily. James realized he had a choice: protect his wealthy life by turning her away, or protect his son by keeping her close, no matter the danger. And for the first time, James understood money could not shield him from what was coming. Bond and transformation, the apartment still smelled of smoke and broken glass. The floor was littered with shattered crystal and burned furniture. Silent proof of the attack that had almost taken everything from James, his wealthy home. Once a fortress of pride and security, now looked fragile like a cage cracked open. But Ethan slept peacefully that night. And he wasn't alone. Lyra sat by his side, her glowing eyes dim but steady, her fragile body resting against the wall. Though she looked weak, there was a quiet strength in her presence that gave Ethan comfort. James stood in the doorway, watching them. He couldn't remember the last time he had seen his son sleep with such peace. For years, Ethan had been restless, lost in loneliness. But now, with this strange alien girl beside him, Ethan looked whole. For James, that was both comforting and terrifying. The next morning, sunlight streamed into the broken apartment. James had refused to call the police or even his private guards. He didn't trust anyone. The intruders had been no ordinary criminals. Their weapons were unlike anything human. He couldn't risk outsiders knowing. Instead, he stayed home with Ethan and Lyra. As the hours passed, James began to notice changes in his son. Ethan's movements were sharper, his eyes brighter, as though Lyra's presence had awakened something hidden inside him. While James made breakfast, Ethan sat on the floor with Lyra, tracing glowing symbols in the air. Each time he drew one, the faint light lasted a little longer. James stared in disbelief as a small orb of light floated above Ethan's palm before fading. Impossible, James muttered, setting down the pan. Lyra looked at him. Not impossible. He learns fast. His heart listens. James crossed his arms. And what exactly is he learning? To fight like you did last night. To attract more enemies. Lyra's gaze softened. Not fight. Protect. Big difference. Ethan looked up at his father. Dad, she's teaching me how to be strong, not just strong here. He tapped his chest. Strong here. James's throat tightened. He had spent his whole life teaching Ethan through wealth, buying him tutors, gadgets, and the best schools. But none of it had given Ethan what Lyra was giving him. Confidence, courage, and purpose. Over the next few days, something unexpected happened. The three of them began to feel like a family. Lyra, though quiet, became part of their daily routine. She helped Ethan with his lessons, teaching him both human subjects and alien wisdom. She showed him how to calm his breath, how to listen to the world around him, how to find balance between fear and courage. James found himself drawn to her too. At first, he had only watched from a distance, suspicious of her every move. But slowly, he saw her differently. She was patient with Ethan in ways James had never been. She encouraged the boy, not with money or rewards, but with kindness. Sometimes, James would catch her staring out the window at the stars. Her glowing eyes filled with sadness. It reminded him of his own late nights, staring at the city lights, wondering if his life had meaning beyond wealth. One evening, as Ethan slept, James found Lyra sitting alone on the balcony, the night breeze ruffling her tangled silver hair. You've changed him, James said quietly. Lyra looked up. He changed me too. James frowned. How her voice was soft, almost breaking. I ran for years, hiding, alone. No one to trust, no one to talk. Then, I met Boy. He saw me, not monster, not weapon, just me. James's chest tightened. For years, he had felt the same, surrounded by people, but always alone. For the first time, he understood her. You're not alone anymore, he said. His voice low but firm. Her glowing eyes softened, and for a brief moment, James felt a warmth between them he hadn't felt since his wife's death. But the moment was cut short. Lyra's body stiffened. She turned toward the city's skyline, her eyes narrowing. They watch, she whispered. James followed her gaze, but saw nothing. Still, he trusted her senses. The hunters hadn't given up. They were waiting, watching, planning their return. James clenched his fists. He had been a man of deals, contracts, and business wars, but this was different. This was survival. He couldn't just hide behind money anymore. He needed to fight back, not just for himself, but for his son and for Lyra. That night, he made a decision. He called Ethan to his study and placed a hand on his son's shoulder. Ethan, things are changing. We're not safe anymore. But if we stand together, we can be strong. Stronger than them, Ethan nodded eagerly. With Lyra, we can do anything. James looked at Lyra, who stood silently behind the boy. Her glowing eyes met his, steady and certain. For the first time, he didn't see her as a homeless stranger. He saw her as an ally, a protector, and maybe even part of the family he had thought he lost forever. The bond between them was no longer fragile. It was growing, transforming them all. But as James looked at his son's glowing hands, and at Lyra's tired but determined eyes, he knew the hunters would return. And next time, the battle would decide not just their survival, but the future of something far greater. James realized he had a choice: protect his wealthy life by turning her away, or protect his son by keeping her close, no matter the danger. And for the first time, James understood money could not shield him from what was coming. The final decision, the nights grew colder. And with them came a tension James could no longer ignore. Lyra's warning was true. The hunters had not gone. Every evening, he felt their presence like unseen eyes pressing against the walls of his home. His wealth could not shield him. His status could not silence them. And his guards were powerless against an enemy that came from beyond the stars. One evening, James gathered Ethan and Lyra in the living room. The boy's hands glowed faintly as he traced symbols in the air, while Lyra sat quietly beside him, her fragile body resting but her eyes sharp. James's voice was heavy. "They're coming back. We can't hide forever. I need to know the truth. Lyra, why? Are they after you? Why is Ethan in danger?" Lyra lowered her head, her glowing eyes dim with sorrow. "Because I carry what they want. The last memory of my people. Knowledge older than your earth. They want it to control, to destroy. And Ethan? He is the only one who can hold it. His spirit is strong. His mind is open." James's blood ran cold. "So they want him to?" She nodded. "Yes, if they cannot take me, they will take him. That is why I stay. To protect." Ethan looked between them, fear flickering in his young eyes. "Dad, I don't want to be taken. I just want to help." James pulled his son close, his jaw tight. He had lost his wife, but he would not lose his son, not to men, not to aliens, not to fate itself. That night, it happened. The hum of engines shook the city air. Black vehicles surrounded the apartment once again, but this time there were more. Lights cut through the windows. The walls trembled as heavy weapons powered up. A voice thundered through loudspeakers. "James, this is your last chance. Give us the girl, and we will leave you in peace. Refuse, and we will burn everything you love." Ethan gripped his father's arm. "Dad, what do we do?" James looked at Lyra. She sat still, her glowing eyes locked on him. For once, she didn't speak. She was waiting for his choice. All his life, James had chosen wealth. He had chosen power, reputation, and safety. But now, staring at his son and at this fragile girl who had given them both something more valuable than money, James knew there was only one choice left. He stood, his voice steady. "I won't give her up. Not to you. Not ever." The response was immediate. Explosions tore through the outer walls. And armored hunters stormed inside. James fired his gun, determination burning in his eyes. But there were too many. The hunters spread out, their weapons glowing with deadly energy. One aimed directly at Ethan. Lyra's body glowed brighter than ever before. She stepped in front of the boy, her arms wide, her thin frame blazing like a star. The blast struck her, but instead of falling, she absorbed it. Her glowing eyes flared, and for a moment the entire room shone with blinding blue light. The hunters staggered back, shielding their eyes. James shouted, firing shot after shot, forcing them away. But Lyra was weakening. Her voice was barely a whisper. "James, take him. Protect him. This is my end." "No." James shouted, grabbing her arm. "You're not leaving us. We fight together." Lyra's lips trembled in the faintest smile. "You already fight. Like one of us." With the last of her strength, she pressed her glowing hand against Ethan's chest. The symbol she had taught him blazed to life, covering his arms in brilliant light. Ethan gasped, his small body trembling as power flowed through him. The hunters roared, charging again. But Ethan stepped forward, his eyes glowing like Lyra's. He raised his hands, and a shield of light burst outward, slamming into the hunters and sending them crashing back. James stood frozen, staring at his son. "Ethan, what have you done?" Ethan's voice shook, but was steady. "Dad, I can protect us now, like she said. The hunters, beaten and blinded, retreated once more. Their vehicles screeched into the night, leaving the apartment in ruins. When the silence returned, James turned to Lyra. She was on the floor, her glow fading, her fragile chest rising and falling weakly. Ethan knelt beside her, tears streaming down his cheeks. "Don't go," the boy begged. "Please, Lyra, stay with us." Her glowing eyes softened. She touched his cheek with a trembling hand. "You are strong now. My people live. In you. Never forget." Her light dimmed, her hand falling limp. The glow in her eyes flickered one last time before fading into stillness. Ethan buried his face in her chest, sobbing. James knelt beside them, his heart breaking. He had promised to protect her, but she had been the one protecting them until the very end. James placed a hand on Ethan's shoulder. "She's gone, son. But she gave you everything she had. And now, it's up to us to keep her alive in memory, in strength, in the choices we make." Ethan wiped his tears, the glowing symbols on his arms fading slowly but not vanishing. He nodded, his small face set with determination far beyond his years. James looked out at the broken city beyond his shattered windows. The war wasn't over. The hunters would return. But now, he wasn't alone. He had his son. He had Lyra's gift. And for the first time in his life, James understood true wealth. It wasn't money, power, or reputation. It was family, the kind you fought for, the kind you refused to let go. And he swore he would never stop fighting.